Right there, Dr. Hema here again with another video tutorial looking at factorising quadratics. This time we're going to look at factorising non-monic quadratics. The method we're going to use is the method called splitting the x term. So let's start off by looking at some definitions. So importantly, we need to understand what the difference is between a non-monic quadratic and a monic quadratic. So let's start off with the monic quadratics. Monic quadratics are ones of this form here. Okay, so if you look at that, notice that the coefficient or the number out inside in front of the x squared term is equal to 1. Okay, so that's the key thing. So the coefficient of x squared is 1. So it's the key thing that characterises a monic quadratic. Typically, we factorise these using the sum and product method. Okay, second kind of quadratic is what we call the non-monic quadratic. So these guys here. So importantly, the number in front of the x squared, or the coefficient of x squared, is not equal to 0 and it's not equal to 1. And as I said, these are referred to as non-monic quadratics. We're going to look at the using splitting the x term method to factorise quadratics of this form. So on to an example. So first example we'll start off with is this one here. So 6x squared plus 19x plus 10. Again, first thing we look at is, can we take out a highest common factor? So in this case we've got an x squared term, an x term and a constant term, so we can't take out any x's. And if we look at the numbers, we've got 6, 19 and 10. The highest common factor of these is 1, so we can't take out a common factor. Okay, so first thing we do then is we look at the number in front of the x squared, which is 6, multiplied by the constant, which is 10. It equals 60. So what we want is two numbers or two factors, p and q, such that p plus q equals 19, so this number here, and p times q equals 60. Oops, okay, that number there. Alright, so let's drop a little table. P, Q, and P plus Q. Stick that down a bit there. So looking at factors of 60, so 1 and 60 adds up to 61, too high. 2 and 30 adding up to 32, again too high. 3 and 20, that's up to 23. 4 and 15, add those up, we get 19. Bingo, got it. Okay, so what we do now, having found those two numbers, is we split this term, right, the x term. We write it as 4x plus 15x, which correspond to these two numbers that we found, plus 10. Now we're going to group these two terms and these two terms, and what we need to do is find the highest common factor in these two terms. So 2 is a factor of both of these, as is x. So 2x is the highest common factor here, leaving 3x plus 2. This one, highest common factor, is going to be, so if we look at 15 and 10, highest common factor is 5. So we'll take 5 out as a factor, leaving 3x plus 2. Now what we notice is that we've got 3x plus 2 as a factor here, 3x plus 2 as a factor there. So we can take that out as a common factor out the front. Multiplied by, we've got 2x plus 5. There we go, factorised it. Now, you might be wondering what happens if I write this split the x term in the other manner. So instead we write it as 15x plus 4x plus 10. Probably wondering, do we get the same answer? Well, let's have a look. So again, group the terms, group those two terms, group these two terms. Highest common factor in this case is going to be 3x, leaving 2x plus 5. Highest common factor of the second two terms is 2, leaving 2x plus 5. Take the 2x plus 5 out as a common factor, and the other factor is 3x plus 2. And notice that this one here and that one there are the same. Okay, let's have it. Okay, looking at a second example here. So we've got 8x squared, take 30x plus 7, so this time we've got a negative in there. AC is coefficient of x squared times by the constant, which equals 56. So we're after two numbers, or two factors of 56 that need to add up to minus 30. So we need to be a bit careful here. So this time, because they add up to minus 30, they both need to be negatives. Okay, so let's start off minus 1 and minus 56. Adding those together, we get minus 57, which is too high. Minus 2 and minus 28. Adding those together, we get minus 30. Exactly what we're after. So, again, we now split the x term using those two factors. And again, it doesn't matter what order we write them in. So grouping those two. So the highest common factor of the first two terms is going to be 2x, leaving 4x minus 1. And then the highest common factor of the second two terms is going to be minus 7, which leaves us with 4x take 1. Now 4x take 1 is a common factor, so we have to bring that out the front, and 2x take 7 is our second factor. Okay, so a couple of things to be careful with here. So going back up to here, because we had the negative number at the front there, we bring out the negative 7 as a factor, and then here, careful to make sure we put it as negative 1, because minus 7 times minus 1 is going to be plus 7, which is what we're after here. Okay, one last example. So let's consider this example here. So 12x squared plus 14x take 40. Remember, number one rule when factorising quadratics, look for a highest common factor first. Highest common factor in this case is 2. So bring that highest common factor out the front. 6x squared plus 7x take 20. By taking that highest common factor out, we're going to make life a lot easier for us in terms of doing splitting the x term. So a times c, so really what we're doing now is focusing in on this expression inside the brackets. So AC is equal to 6 times minus 20 equals minus 120. Okay, so we've still got a big number, but if we didn't take that 2 out as a common factor, we'd have A times C equals minus 480. Should be considerably more difficult to deal with. So P, Q, P plus Q. Let's draw that down there. Okay, so starting off, now we're going to have one negative and one positive. So starting off at negative 1 times 120, adding those together you get 119, too high, minus 2 and 60, which gives you 58 when you add them together, minus 3 and 40, which is 37, minus 4 and 30, add those together, you get 26, minus 5 and 24, add those together, you get 19, minus 6 and 20, added together is 14, minus 7 is not a factor, so go to minus 8, multiply that by 15, add those together, we get 7, which is what we're after. Okay, so notice with a number like 120 or minus 120, quite a few factors to consider. Okay, so keep that 2 at the front, so don't remove that. So we've got 6x squared, take 8x, plus 15x, take 20. So that's the splitting the x term part of it. Again, keeping that 2 at the front. And we've got, grouping those two terms and grouping those two terms. So the highest common factor of the first pair of terms will be 2x, which gives us 3x minus 4 as a factor. And the highest common factor in the second two terms will be 5, leaving 3x minus 4 as a factor. Okay, again, 2 at the front. So we've got 3x take 4 as a factor, and 2x plus 5. Now notice we've got some unnecessary brackets now, so we'll just get rid of those and write our final answer as such. Okay, again, have a look at some examples with these, practice them, rewind the videos until you got the hang of it. Okay, good luck with that, folks.